Hello fellow booktubers, my name is Laura and you're watching Dreams, Books, Courage, and today I'm going to be showing you my May wrap up. So the month of May was a bit slow for me because I had my graduation last month and so I had to go to a lot of ceremonies for that. So I thought that I would have a lot of time to read in the month of May, but I really didn't, and then my reading just got kind of slow towards the middle of the month. So I only managed to finish 5 books, but I did quite enjoy them, so let's go ahead and get into what I read. So the first book that I finished in May was The Bookstore by Deborah Myler. This novel is about a girl named Esme, and she is from England, but she is on scholarship at Columbia University in New York City, and she is there to finish her doctorate, and so many things are going so well for her in her life. She has this very successful boyfriend, and she is just very happy with her life right now. Until she finds out that she is actually pregnant, and then everything kind of goes downhill from there. Along the way you kind of figure out that her boyfriend isn't as good of a guy as he seemed, and she's just struggling a lot with whether or not she should get an abortion or raise her own child. And through it all, she is working at this secondhand bookshop. I did enjoy that this novel did seem very unique. The characters were very unique a lot of the time, and I really love New York City, so it was great to hear more about that and about a bookshop that kind of reminded me of the Strand. I was really into this novel for like the first third of it. I was just really enjoying the writing style, and everything was pretty much going great in terms of how much I was enjoying this book. But then I kind of realized that Esme was going to be stuck on this guy for the entire book. Her boyfriend is a complete jerk and he doesn't want her to even have his child. He only stays with her because it's like the gentleman thing to do, but he doesn't really like her and he's just a horrible person overall. And for some reason she still is in love with him for the entirety of this novel. And so that got really old very quickly, and I just really didn't enjoy how stuck Esme was on this guy. She just kept going after the same guy, and also it seemed very unrealistic that it was just going to be very easy for her to have a child and also be finishing her doctorate. Like, obviously it's possible, but it just made it seem too easy within this novel. Overall, I did enjoy the writing style, and I feel like that's kind of what saved me for this book and why I kept reading it. I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars, but definitely not one that I liked very much, but I did enjoy the writing style, so I might be open to reading more books by this author. After reading that disappointing book, this next book definitely did not disappoint me, and that is Flatland by Edwin A. Abbott. This is actually a classic novel that is about this dystopia world in which all of the men are polygons and all of the women are lines, and they're living in this two-dimensional world, and it is very interesting. About half of this book is just spent on explaining the world and how it really works, and so you're definitely not confused about it by the time that it actually gets to the story, but it is focused on this character of a square, and this square actually gets to explore a one-dimensional world and also a three-dimensional world, and to really just understand how these dimensions work, and also maybe there is a 4th dimension, and so it is just a very interesting premise. Although this book did contain some math, it wasn't like too heavy on it, because personally I am not a big fan of math, but I could still read it and I really loved this novel. One thing that I feel like dystopians usually don't do very well is really explain how the world comes about or how it really works, but I think that this did it perfectly, and so it was definitely worth all of the descriptions that it gave. If you want to read a classic and you're not sure where to start, I would suggest this one, although it's kind of hard to get into at first. I think that it's definitely worth it, and it is quite tiny, so it really won't take you very much time at all to read. I ended up giving this book 5 out of 5 stars. It was phenomenal, and I just really enjoyed the world building and the story itself, and really exploring whether or not there is a 4th dimension, which of course would be the spirit world, and how we live in the 3rd dimension, but we also use the 1st and 2nd dimension, and just different things like that. It made it really intellectually interesting and intriguing, and so I really enjoyed that about this book. After that, I read my favorite read of the month, and that was, of course, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. And I will be posting a book discussion over this book very soon, so definitely look out for that. But to give you a brief synopsis on this book, it is focused on a girl named Feyre, and she lives in this world where high fae really control the human world as well. And these fae are kind of like humans, except they look better and they're faster, smarter, stronger, and they all have special and unique powers. Feyre hates the fae, and so one day she sees a wolf in the forest and she shoots it, not knowing whether or not it is a fae, but it turns out to be one. So another high fae actually comes to her and takes her back to his home. And the story kind of goes from there. I don't want to go too into detail about it because I feel like it's better to just go into this book without knowing very much whatsoever, but this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling and it is done so well. I really enjoyed this. I love Beauty and the Beast, and so seeing it in the form of Sarah J. Maas's writing was just so beautiful. Sarah J. Maas definitely makes it her own, and she does it in such a beautiful way. This world is very interesting, and even if you don't really like hearing about Fae, I would definitely still suggest that you check this one out, because the way that Sarah J. Maas portrays Fae is different from the way that a lot of other authors portray Fae. So it's definitely an interesting take on the story and on Fae, and I just really loved it. I love the characters and pretty much everything about it. Even if you're not a big fan of Throne of Glass, I would still suggest that you still check this one out, because especially if you had a problem with Selena in Throne of Glass, Feyre is completely different from her, and the writing style is just so good, so I would definitely recommend this book to you guys. Of course, I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. And then I read a completely different story, and that is actually a memoir, and that was Popular by Maya Van Wagenen. This is a memoir that was originally written by a 13-year-old, and she is in 8th grade, and she finds this popularity guide from the 50s, and so she decides to completely follow that, and she wears almost exactly what they wore in the 50s and just things like that. But this is taking place in modern day, and so she kind of catalogs her experience from that, and then she actually manages to publish this novel whenever she was 15, so obviously she's still quite young, and that is very impressive to me. I would say that this is quite an inspiring read, and especially if you're in middle school, I would definitely suggest that you pick this up. I definitely wish that I would have read this whenever I was a bit younger, like in middle school, because now it's not as helpful to me, but I felt like this definitely had a lot of good life lessons for people who are younger. Although it is based around popularity, it really talks about how you just really need to get to know people and be nice to them and not necessarily just be popular in general. I wasn't very fond of the writing style in this. Obviously it was written by a 13-year-old girl, so that is very understandable that the writing style is very simple, but it did make it kind of hard for me to connect to this book. Overall, it was a pretty good read, and I did find it very interesting, although I did wish that I had read it a bit younger, but I would definitely suggest you pick this up if you are still in grade school. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars, but I would definitely love it even more if I was a bit younger. The 5th and final thing that I read in the month of May was a speech, and that is Very Good Lives by J.K. Rowling. This is actually a commencement speech that J.K. Rowling gave to Harvard students in 2008, and I picked this up in an actual copy instead of just looking for it online because, for one, it benefits J.K. Rowling's charity, which is Lumos, and so a lot of the profits are going to that organization, which I find awesome, and also because I graduated at the end of May, and so I actually read this on my graduation day. It was just the perfect time to read it, and it is a very inspirational speech, and it talks about the benefits of failure and also the power of imagination, which are 2 of my favorite topics, and I just found it very interesting, inspiring, and also very quotable. If you have the money, I would definitely suggest that you pick this up in physical form because it's just nice to have around, and you're also supporting a charity. But if you do not have the money, I would definitely suggest that you look this up on YouTube or maybe just somewhere on the internet. I'm sure it is available. Either way, this was just a very inspirational speech, and it was just the perfect time to read it whenever I was graduating, and of course I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Pretty much anything by J.K. Rowling I love, but this was just very powerful and inspirational. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I would love to know if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, and also what your favorite read was in the month of May. Although I did have a slow reading month, I am really looking forward to June, and I'm going to have a big TBR, so definitely look out for that. And now I'm gonna go get back to reading.